Hi, everybody. This is our first section in the Math 1314 course. All the prerequisites are done. Like I said, we're going to start with solving for x. The steps for solving for x is number 1, distribute. Step 2, combine terms on each side of the equal sign. Step 3, add and subtract to get the x's on one side. Step 4, add and subtract numbers to get them to the other side. And then finally, multiply and divide numbers to get them to the other side. So this is the steps for solving. Anytime you just see an x without a square, we're going to solve for x. So we're going to use these steps. If there was an x square in there and an x, then you get everything to one side and factor it. But there's no x square in any of these problems, so we're trying to get x on one side and everything else to the other. Solve means tell me what x equals. Get x on one side, everything else to the other. All right, step 1, distribute. There is no distribute in this problem. Step 2, combine like terms on each side. I cannot add the x and 1 together. I cannot add the x and the -3. So those cannot be added. So step 1 and step 2 don't exist for this problem. Step 3, get the x's to one side. It doesn't matter which side the x's go to, but I'm going to always try to make my x's positive. I mean, I think that's a pretty good rule. So I want to take this minus 7x over to the right side, because the only way to get a minus 7x to the other side, don't forget step 3, we're going to add and subtract to get the x's to the other side. So the opposite of minus 7x is adding 7x. Adding 7x to both sides. Adding 7x minus 7x is 0 on the left. I'm left with a -3. And here I have, don't forget, x means 1x. 1x plus 7x is 8x plus 1. These two add together, then we have a plus 1. So we just did step 3. Step 1 and 2 didn't exist for this problem. We did step 3. Now I have to, okay, there we go. Now I have to take the 8 over to the other side and the 1. You ask yourself, what is the 8 doing to the x? It's multiplying. What is the 1 doing to the x or this side? It's adding. So that's how I know which one to take to the other side first, because step 4 says take the one that's being added or subtracted to the other side first before step 5. So the 1 is being added. The opposite of adding 1 is subtracting 1. That turns to 0. I'm left with 8x. And -3 minus 1 is a -4. If you're not sure about that, make sure you put it in your calculator. Then I'm going to divide by 8. I need to get the 8 to the other side. It's multiplying. The opposite of multiplying by 8 is dividing by 8. 8 divided by 8 is 1x. Another way of writing 1x is just x. -4 divided by 8 is -1/2. So you can put that in your calculator and you get -1/2. It reduces it for you. That's the answer. Everybody okay? Everybody remember steps for solving? Are you guys here? Say yes in the chat box. Okay, let's see who's awake. Okay, 3 people are awake. All right, it's good that somebody's awake. All right, so I'm going to use these steps again. Unfortunately, as soon as I scroll up, this thing is actually, it's not going to erase. I can do, let's see how I can do this. it's not going to erase. I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do this. Aha. See, I'm learning. Step 1, distribute. So there's a distribution, and distribute means a number outside of a parentheses has to be multiplied times each term in the parentheses. Yes, I did roll, and you were late. Don't worry, I'll mark you here when we leave. Matilda. 2 times 5x is 10x, and 2 times 39 is 78. That's step 1, distribute. Step 2, ooh, I like this problem. I see something. I like it. Step 2, combine like terms on each side. I cannot add those two together. That's on one side of the equal sign. And I cannot add these two together because one's an x and one's just a regular number. So there's no step 2. But there is a step 3. Get all the x's to one side. Can somebody tell me what side you want to take the x's to, the right or the left? Just type it in for me. Right side or left side. It doesn't matter. So first person said left and everybody copied her. You guys are such cheaters. So we're going to take this 10x to the left. And remember, step 3 says add and subtract to take the x's to the other side. It's a positive 10x. We're going to do minus 10x to both sides. 10x minus 10x is 0. So we're left with 87. Oh no, on the right side, 10x minus 10x is 0. We're just left with 78. If x's vanish, the x's are gone. I have 78 equals 87. Is this true or false? $78 and 87 do not equal each other. So that's false. False means there is no solution. There is no solution. So in this problem and the homework, there's a little button that says no solution, I believe. Alma, why did you say divide? No, we're on step 3. We're on step 3. Add or subtract to get the x's to one side. I have an x over here and an x over here, but they're both 10x's. When I subtract the one 10x to the other side, 10x minus 10x is 0. They all disappear. They all disappear. And this is a special situation. If you look at what we have here, this is a false statement because 87 does not equal 87. 87 does not equal 78. And a false statement, you have to write there's no solution. Now, in the next, well, that's no, there's no next problem. I wish they had the next problem. Like, okay, they have something else for the next problem. So just know, now I'm going to go ahead and write the what happens if the statement was true. I'm going to write this. If the statement was true, then there are many solutions. I think they say, I'm kind of curious to what the book would say. I think an infinite amount of solutions. So just remember, in this problem, though, the answer is false. The 78 and 87 don't equal each other. A true statement would be something like 87 equals 87. Do you see? That's true. That means there are many solutions. If I have 78 equals 87, that's false. Then there are no solutions. This is no solution. This is many solutions. This is only when the x disappear, when you don't have any x's left in the problem. And it happens every now and then. Okay. And you'll see that when you do the homework. I am going to try the next problem. Step 1, distribute. There's a number outside of a parentheses, and we're going to distribute. 6 times x is 6x. 6 times 1 is 6. Then I just bring everything else down. I distributed it and brought everything else down. Step 2. Yes, Matilda, the answer to that last problem is there is no solution. There's no answer. There's nothing that will plug into there to give me the correct answer on both sides. So there is no solution. The answer to that problem is no solution. Anytime the x's disappear and you get a false statement, the answer is no solution. So step 1, distribute. Step 2, combine like terms on each side. On the right side, I can't add negative 5x and negative 3. I'm not able to add those. On the left side, I can combine the x's. Negative 7x plus 6x is a minus 1x. And negative 2 and a plus 6 equals a plus 4. All right, so this is what we have. So step 2 is combine like terms. I can combine the x's together and I get a negative 1x. And then add the numbers together, negative 2 and 6, and I get a positive 4. Step 3, get all the x's to one side. I am going to take this minus 5x to the other side, because when I take it over there, it's going to be a plus 5x. And it's going to, what do you call it? It's going to turn positive. So I'm going to add 5x, add 5x. The only step 3, you have to add and subtract to get those x's to the other side. And minus 1x plus 5x is 4x. That turns to 0, and I just have a negative 3. I have to get the 4 to the other side and the 4 to the other side. We've just finished step 3. Now we're on step 4. Do the add and subtract. This 4 is adding to this side. This 4 is multiplying to the x or the side. So you take the first, you take this plus 4 to the other side. Opposite of adding 4 is subtracting 4. That turns to 0. I am left with 4x equals equals -7. -3 and -4. -3 minus 4 equals a -7. And then we just got to get the 4 to the other side. It's multiplying, so we're going to divide by 4. Divide by 4, divide by 4. 4 divided by 4 is 1x. -7 divided by 4 is a decimal, so we leave it as a fraction. That's the answer to number 3. We okay? Everybody okay? All righty. Moving on. Step 1, distribute. Okay, so we have more than the usual parentheses. So when we distribute, I'm going to add this in here in a different color. Try to do the inside, the innermost parentheses first. Do you see there's this, you have this, but we're not going to do that first. We're going to do the innermost in the parentheses. The brackets are the big parentheses. And so we're going to do the innermost parentheses. And this is the innermost parentheses. 3 times 1 is 3, or 3 times x is 3x. 3 times 1 is 3. Then we have the bracket, the -2x minus 5, minus 7. There's a plus right here. So this is what we get. We distribute the 3, and that's what we get. We still have to distribute this -7, but I'm not going to do it yet. I'm going to try to combine. You see, I have a parentheses. I'm going to try to do all the math I can in there. A -2x and a +3x combine to a +1x. And a -5 and a +3 combine to a -2. So that made all that mess inside a little prettier. Now we can distribute the -7. -7 times x is -7x. -7 times a -2 is a +14. Don't forget that you have to take the test number 2, by Sunday. Don't wait until Sunday night to take it. I'm begging you. Please don't. And this test that's coming up next week on the stuff that we're learning, I think is the end of next week. It's going to be our first respondus test, where you have to have your camera and everything set up. So hopefully you don't get too nervous. You will be recorded. All right. So we just finished step 1, by the way. That's all we did was step 1. Do all the distribution, and now we're moving on. Step 2, combine like terms on each side. Nothing can be added on the left side or the right side. Let's get all the step 3, get all the x's to one side. So I'm going to take this 7x, this -7x to the other side. It's a -7x, so I'm going to do the opposite. add 7x to both sides. The left side turns to 0. Three x and 7x is 10x. And then we have that minus 6 that drops down. I need to get rid of the 10 now and the 6. Once again, step 4, the add and subtract first. This is a minus 6, so I'm going to add 6. That's 20 equals 10x. That turns to 0. And then divide by 10. To get the 10 over, it's multiplying. We're going to divide by 10, divide by 10, divide by 10. And x equals 2. There's our answer. All of this can be done from these 5 steps. I should have a quiz for you guys or something to make sure you're awake. You can't use your calculator for solving for x. It won't do it. You can try. Your calculator will not solve for x. Anytime there's an x or a y or a variable in the problem, your calculators won't do it. Solving for x, it will not do it. You're looking for the easy way out, huh, Shanice? So am I. Unfortunately. All right, moving on. It's the end of week 3. All right, problem number 5. Okay, so I like this problem because a lot of people mess this up, and I want to make sure. We've talked about this in the past. It's good to talk about it again. Can somebody tell me what is the first thing I'm supposed to distribute in this problem? I'd like you to type it in. What is the first thing I can distribute? Yeah, 5 weeks to go. Type in, what is the first thing I need to distribute? And Matilda said X. Amanda said, yeah. So what am I distributing, Amanda, when you say that? Yes, Denise, you are correct. Amanda, you're correct also. You just didn't elaborate. So there's this negative. Do you see the innermost parentheses is right here? That's the innermost parentheses. And we got to remember, when we have a negative in front of a parentheses, that means there's an invisible -1 there. All these invisible numbers in math. That's why people always say math is hard. There's a lot of invisible numbers. By the way, after class, I'm selling these special glasses. They're $29.99, and they'll let you see all the invisible numbers in math. So just get your credit cards out, and after class, I'll be taking your information. I'm kidding. I've had people come up to me and ask me, can I get those special glasses? So we had to distribute the -1. But I usually tell them in class, you got to come out to my car with me. In the back of my trunk, I have them. Okay. -1 times 3 is a -3. -1 times a -1x. Don't forget, there's an invisible 1 there. -1 times a -1x is also a +1x. -1 times -1 is a positive 1x. I'm not going to put the 1 there. I'm just going to put the x, positive 1x. So we distributed that. There's a bracket, and an x that sits in front. Then there's a 7 here, a 6, and an x plus 5 with the equal sign. Okay, just like we did in the last problem when we had two big parentheses like this, we try to combine the stuff inside. Look, x plus x, 1 apple plus 1 apple is 2 apples. 1x plus 1x is 2x minus 3. So these two x's add together to get 2x. So we just did the distribute on the innermost. Now we still have another distribute. We have two more distributes. 6x, and here 6 times x is 6x. 6 times 5 is 30. Then we have to distribute the bracket 7 times 2x is 14x, and 7 times a -3 is a -21. Once you distribute, the parentheses disappear, just like up here also. That parentheses disappear when we brought it down. The big bracket is still there. All right, we just did step 1. Step 2, try to combine like terms, and there's nothing on the right side to combine. There's nothing on the left side to combine. Step 3, add or subtract to get the x's to one side. I am going to take this 6x to the other side. And it's a plus 6x, so I'm going to minus 6x to both sides. Do you see how I put the x's underneath the x's? Because those are the ones we're going to add and subtract together. That turned to 0, and I've got 30 equals 14 minus 6 is 8x minus 21. And we need to get rid of the 8. And the 21. Step 4 says get rid of the 21 first, the add and subtract. It's a minus 21. We're going to add 21. So we end up with 51 equals 8x. Get rid of the 8. It's multiplying, so we divide by 8. Divide by 8, divide by 8. And x equals 51 over 8. It doesn't reduce. I don't think it does. 3 times 2 times 20. Yeah, I think that's it. And you can put that in your calculator to verify that it doesn't reduce. Don't forget about that. All right. I was going to skip number 6, but I see that I can't skip it. We need to do it. So let's do number 6. Don't forget, we're doing 2 sections today. Thank you, Alma. That's what I said. I hope everybody's getting really good at using their calculator. I hope everybody's getting really good at using their calculator because it helps. It helps a lot. All right, so I promise you, you're going to love this question. I don't know if you're going to love it, but this is one of those special problems. So step 1, distribute everywhere you can. We're going to distribute this. And don't forget, a negative in front of the parentheses means it's a -1, we have to distribute the -1 also. Only when there's a negative in front of the parentheses, a positive in front of the parentheses, you distribute a +1, it doesn't change anything. 6 times x is 6x. 6 times 3 is 18. -1 times 6 is a -6x. -1 times a +18 is a -18. That's step 1. Step 2, combine like terms. On the right side, there's nothing to add. But on the left side, 18 minus 18 turned to 0. And 6x minus 6x turned to 0. 0 plus 0 is 0. So we end up with 0 equals 0. The x's vanished. The x's disappeared. So is this a true statement or a false statement that I have up here? Is this true or false? Yeah, it's true. 0 does equal 0. It says 0 equals 0. So when it's true, remember those two things. Hopefully you wrote them down. False means no solution. True means an infinite number of solutions. And I just wrote down many solutions. You'll see in the homework what they want you to write down. Many solutions or an infinite number of solutions. Oh, sometimes they write down this. All real numbers. All real numbers. So I'm not sure exactly what. Oh, by the way, can somebody go to the back of the book and tell me what it is? Alma, is that what it says in the back of the book? All real numbers? Okay, good. I was just gonna say sometimes there's a button that they just want you to click. It says all real numbers. Thank you. So this is what the book wants you to do. I mean, some books make you type in the infinite, and then there's some books that just say many solutions. There's so many different versions of this. All right. I'm going to skip number 7 just so we can get on. And let's see what's next. I knew this was going to happen. Number 8. I think the next 3 or 4 problems are going to be fractions. There's going to be fractions in here, but that's okay. We can deal with that. I mean, we've already done this solving for x. Hopefully this makes you get even better at it. Step 1, distribute. There is no distribution. Step 2, combine like terms. This is 7/9. I mean, another way of writing 7/9 x is like this. 7/9 x. It's the same. They're the same thing. 7/9 x minus 12. You can't add those or subtract those. So step 2 is out of the question. Add or subtract to get all the x's to one side. I'm going to take, it really doesn't matter which way you go. I like it this way because the number's over here. I want to take this 7/9 x to that side. And don't forget, this is 1x. You know, x by itself is 1x. I don't want anybody to forget that. So, and we're on step 3. 7/9 x is positive. The way to get it to the other side is subtract 7/9 x. Subtract 7/9 x. That turns to 0. I am left with -12 on the left. And on your calculator, you have to do 1 minus 7/9. 1 minus fraction 7 over 9. And you get a positive 2 over 9x. Right? So this is 1 minus 7/9. 1x minus 7/9x. I'm not putting the x's in the calculator, just the 1 minus 7/9, and we get 2/9. All right. Do you remember if there's a fraction in front of the x, the final step, how do I get the entire 2/9 to the other side? Does anybody remember how we take the entire 2/9 to the other side? Anybody remember? We actually went over this. Flip, yes, thank you. We take the reciprocal of 2/9 and we multiply both sides by it, 9 over 2. And then I multiply this side by 9 over 2. What happens is 9 times 2 is 18. 2 times 9 is 18. 18 over 18 is 1x. Do you see these, or you can say they cancel and you're just left with 1x. Over here on my calculator, I have to do negative 12 times 9 over 2. So I'm all this fractional math I put in my calculator. Negative 12 times fraction 9 over 2. And I get negative 54. Yes, you multiply the reciprocal. Thank you, Amanda. You multiply the reciprocal. You multiply and flip that fraction. You multiply the flippity, the reciprocal. Everybody okay with that? Just remember, we're going to be doing a lot of fractions. So that last part, if there's a fraction multiplying times an x, to get rid of it, you multiply both sides by its reciprocal, by flipping it and multiplying both sides by that. All righty. How many questions are on this section? I haven't even checked. Oh, no. Oh, no. It's never going to end. Oh, no. 17. And I wanted to do 2 sections. I don't even know where we're at. We're on problem 9. Let me raise this up a little bit more. I need as much room as I can get. All right. So because of the fractions, I'm going to treat this kind of like we did the quadratic formula. All the steps are the same, but if you have this 5 underneath the x and the 2 and this 4 underneath the x and the 7, remember when we did the quadratic formula, you can rewrite this and say x over 5 plus 2 over 5. Remember, this 5 should be underneath both of them. You can break it apart and separate it and put that 5 underneath both. Same as the other side. You can put the 4 underneath both. I think that might be the easiest way about it. So step 1, distribute. There is no distribute. Step 2, add together, combine on the left and the right, but these are x numbers and this is just regular numbers. So nothing can be added or subtracted. Step 3, take all the x's to one side. It doesn't matter which side. I'm going to take this 4 to the left. Like I said, it doesn't matter which way you go. We're going to end up with a negative x, but that's okay. So I'm going to take that over to that side. And I want you to remember, I can't stress this enough. When I say x over 5, it's really 1/5 x, right? There's a 1 in front of this. So I'm going to take 1x over 4 to the other side. It's a positive, so I'm going to subtract 1/4 x. That's, I mean, it's the same thing. I'm going to subtract 1/4 x. That turns, wait, yeah, that's a positive. That's a negative. That turns to 0. On the right-hand side, we're left with just a -7 over 4. On the left-hand side, we have to combine these. And on my calculator, I'm not putting the x's, I'm just putting the numbers. 1/5 minus 1/4. Do you see? Put that in your calculator. 1/5, it's the positive 1/5 minus 1/4. 1/5 minus, subtract, fraction 1/4. And I get a -1 over 20x. And don't forget, there's still a 2 over 5 here. Everybody okay with that step? I mean, you have to use it. Everybody says, oh, fractions are so hard. Not when you're using the calculator. You have to understand this is that. 1/5 minus 1/4 is -1 over 20, but the x stays there. All right, so that was step 3. All the x's are on one side. It doesn't matter if your x is negative. Next, I need to get rid of this -120, and I need to get rid of the 2/5. The -120 is multiplying times the x. The 2/5 is adding. Step 4 says add and subtract the x's first. So I'm going to, it's a 2/5, so I'm going at positive 2/5, I'm going to subtract 2/5. Subtract 2/5. That turns to 0. I'm left with a -1 over 20x equals -7/4 minus 2/5. On my calculator, negative fraction subtract fraction 2/5. When you do this, you should get -43 over 20. If you tried this, hopefully you got what I got, -43 over 20. Everybody okay with that? Got to put that in your calculator correctly. Now I need to take the fraction to the other side, so x is by itself. It's a fraction in front of x. You multiply by its reciprocal, 20 over 1. So I'm multiplying this side by 20 over 1 and this side by 20 over 1. Now be careful. It's multiply and divide the number. So this is multiplying, but we're going to multiply its reciprocal. By the way, by flipping it, it's still a negative. So we're multiplying 20 over 1. -1 over 20 flipped is still -20 over 1. -20 over 1. This all turns to 0, 1x. On the other side, when you multiply these two, -43 over 20 times -20 over 1, you get a positive 43. So the answer to number 9 is a positive 43. I think the next section is going to go much quicker than this one. We still got some work to do on this one, but oh, excuse me. The next section is going to go a little bit better, a little easier. Wait, did we do 10? We haven't done question 10 yet, right? I don't know what we've done. No, we haven't done 10 yet. They're giving us all these different scenarios. Question 10, distribute. There is no parentheses, numbered multiplying. Combine like terms. Oh, on this side, we have x's minus x's. Do you see on our calculator, we have to put 2/5 minus 1/3. So we're adding the x's together, but you can't put the x's on the calculator, so we're just adding the numbers together. 2/5 adding or subtracting. 2/5 minus 1/3. On my calculator, fraction 2/5 subtract fraction 1/3. I get 1/15. And don't forget, these are x's. That's it. We added those two together, 2/5, or subtracted them. 2/5 minus 1/3 is 1/15. Somebody tell me how I take the 1/15. Now, the only thing I left is take the 1/15 to the other side. How do I take the 1/15 to the other side? Almost says flip it. 15/1, multiply, and multiply this side by 15/1. That ends up being 1x, and 2 times 15/1 is 30. Okie dokie. Please practice these on your calculator. Okay, so get ready. Next Monday, if I can remember, I'm going to have an in-class quiz. What? Next Monday, I'm going to have an in-class quiz. It's going to be on solving for X, so get ready. Yeah. Oh, no. So get ready. Just let you know, right after, maybe during class or right after class, I'm going to give you like 5 or 10 minutes to take a quick quiz. Be prepared. Ooh, it's going to be scary. All right. I want you guys to get involved. I want to see who's awake and who's not. All right, so on this one, there's no distribute. I cannot add these two together. One's an X and one's just a number. That's step 2. Step 3, get all the X's to one side. All the X's are on the left already, so step 3 is done. So step 4 says take the add and subtracts to the other side first. Here's the one being added and subtracted. This 4 is dividing. This 1/2 is adding, so I'm going to take the 1/2 to the other side. I really wish I can figure out a way of getting rid of these ads in my lower right-hand corner. They keep on popping. Uh-oh, I messed something up. What did I do? Okay, I'm back. You guys can't see my workbook right now, right?
Yes, I can see it.
Okay. So I'm going to get the 1/2 to the other side, minus 1/2, minus 1/2. On the left-hand side, I'm just left with the x over 4. On the right-hand side, 11 over 8 minus 1/2. Put that in your calculator. I think it's 7 over 8.
Yes, it's 7 over 8.
Good. And don't forget, when it says x over 4, it's really one. Another way of writing this is 1/4 x. I mean they're the same thing. These are the same. So I need to now just get the 1/4 to the other side. It's multiplying. We're going to multiply by its reciprocal. Multiply by its reciprocal. And we get x equals 7 over 2 when you multiply 7/8 times 4 on your calculator. We're going to skip 12 and go to 13. Why are we even going to 13? Let me see what 14 looks like. Might as well do 14. We're going to skip 12 and 13, go to 14. Step number 1, distribute. 1/9 times x is 1/9 x. 1/9 times 27 on my calculator. Ooh, that brings up a really good point. Well, put that in your calculator. This is 1/9 times 27. When you put that on your calculator, you get 3. Thank you. And here, what am I distributing next? Tell me what, even though I'm putting arrows there, tell me what I'm distributing, or write it down in the chat box. What am I distributing next? It's important because some people will forget to do what I'm about to tell you. What am I distributing on? What am I distributing here? What am I distributing? You can look at the number; it's pretty obvious. But
negative 1/3 times.
Yeah, some people will say you're distributing 1/3, but you're distributing negative 1/3. I want to make sure everybody understands we're distributing the sign and the number. Negative 1/3 times x is a negative 1/3 x. Negative 1/3 times a negative 3, negative 1/3 times a negative 3 is a positive 1. So when you put that in your calculator, you get a positive 1. It's important because some people won't distribute that negative sign and they get the problem wrong. See, this is a positive 1/9, but this is a negative 1/3 we're distributing. And then negative times a negative 3 is a positive. Negative times a negative positive. Negative 1/3 times a positive 1 is a negative 1/3. All right. Then we're going to combine like terms. On my calculator, 1/9 minus 1/3. Fraction 1/9 minus fraction 1/3. I get a negative 2/9. And then we still have 3 plus 1 is 4. Oh, by the way, this is negative 2/9 x. Don't forget about those x's. 1/9 minus 1/3 is a negative 2/9 x. Then 3 plus 1 is 4. We need to take the 4 over to the, oh wait, we got to get the x's on one side. I'm going to take this x to the other side. It's a negative 2/9, so I'm going to do the opposite, add 2/9 x. Add 2/9 x. Don't forget you're adding 2/9 x to just 1. So I'm left with 4 equals 1x plus 2/9 x is 11 over 9x plus 5. 1x plus 2/9 x is 11 over 9x. I'm going to get the 11 to the other side and the 5, but step 4 says you have to take the add and subtract the 5 to the other side first. Minus 5, minus 5. Sorry, I'm running out of room. 4 minus 5 is a negative 1. And negative 1 equals 11 over 9x. Wait, yeah, that's right. Then I have to take the 11 over 9 to the other side. It's multiplying, so I multiply by its reciprocal, 9 over 11. Multiply by 9 over 11. I end up with x equals negative 1 times 9 over 11 is a negative 9 over 11. And we get that as an answer. Have you guys started studying for the test? I didn't check to see if anybody took it yet, but I'm hoping you guys have already started to study, and I'm hoping all the homework is done so you can start studying. I tell you, studying doesn't happen until the homework is done. Then you got to start studying for that test. Watch that review. I put that review in week 3 module. Good, 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 Alma. After this test, all the rest of our tests will be multiple choice. You know, after this test, test 3, 4, and 5, all the algebra, college algebra will be multiple choice. But it's different. It's the college algebra material. Hopefully you got some good study habits these last 3 weeks, or you did some stuff. You're also going to be using the Respondus Monitor for test 3, 4, and 5 and the final. So it's a little different. So you'll see that. 15 and 16. Let's do 16, and then we'll call it a section, not a day, because we still have one more section to cover. So we're doing 16. Step number 1, distribute wherever you can. Any number outside of a parentheses. 1/5 times 10x. When you put that in your calculator, you get 2x. 1/5 times 20, a negative 20, is a negative 4. 1/2 times 8 is 4x, and 1/2 times a negative 4 is a negative 2. Now you see I'm doing it kind of fast here, but I mean, if you can't do it that fast, that's okay. Just you'll get proficient with your calculator if you're not sure about that. Combine like terms, step 2. Nothing adds on the right side or the left side, so that's okay. Step 3, get all the x's to one side. I'm going to take the 2x over to the other side. It's a positive 2x, so I'm going to subtract 2x to both sides. When I subtract 2x, that turns to 0. I'm left with negative 4 equals 4x minus 2x is positive 2x. Take both of these to the other side. Always the add and subtract first. It's a -2, so I'm going to add 2. Here I get a +2 equals 2x. That turns to 0. And then divide by 2. Get this 2 over. It's multiplying. I'm going to divide by 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1x. And 2 divided by 2. Wait. Did anybody see the mistake I made?
-2. The negative.
Yes, thank you. -4 plus 2 is a -2. So -2 divided by 2, let me change that. Is it this right here, -4 plus 2 equals a -2. So then when I divide by 2, -2 divided by 2 is a -1. And that's the answer. And that is our first section of college algebra. So if you came into college algebra without taking a co-rec, this is what you do on day 1. And luckily we had a little solving for x already. I'm going to hit stop.